It's not about the size of the boat, it's about the motion of the ocean. Whatever guys with small tell themselves to feel better. The same rule generally applies to NFL Hall of Famers. Longevity and sustained success are the easiest ways to pick up a gold jacket, but you don't have to play until middle age like Tom Brady or until your own son becomes your teammate like Frank Gore. There are many different Hall of Fame archetypes, and the one we're exploring today is the shooting star. The players who played the least amount of games and still got a bust in Canton. Who they are is coming up right after this. If there's one thing I have learned this year is that your health really matters. And so does a healthy sex life. So if you're struggling with erectile dysfunction, then it's tough to feel like your best self. If you want help, Roman sets the awkwardness of talking about ED aside and connects you with the real US licensed healthcare professional who can prescribe you the medicine you may need. With Roman, you can get a free online evaluation and ongoing care for ED and without leaving your home. If medication is indeed right for you, it can get shipped to your door with free 2-day shipping. Just go to GetRoman.com/5 points and get a free online visit, $15 off your first order of treatment, and free 2-day shipping. Again, that's GetRoman.com/5 points for $15 off your first order of ED treatment. Roman, let's take care of it. For the purposes of this list, we're only including players who played after the merger. There are plenty of Hall of Famers who played 45 career games before being mangled in a workplace accident at their day job, but it would be awfully boring to regale you with the stories of players like Tuffy Lehmans, Dick Stanfel, and Arnie Weinmeister. And back in those days, all it took to get into the Hall of Fame was the ability to throw something resembling a spiral and be available for 3 hours after church on Sundays. Alright, let's get into it. You could certainly make an argument that Lynn Swann didn't have the longevity to make the Hall of Fame. You could also make the argument that he didn't have the numbers for the Hall either. Swann caught just 51 career touchdowns and never eclipsed the 900-yard mark in any of his 9 seasons with the Steelers. The USC product only reeled in 5,500 yards in his career. The second fewest yards by a Hall of Fame wideout, 8,500 from Paul Warfield. Sure, it was a different era, and Pittsburgh wasn't as pass-heavy as they are now, but in 1978, Swann earned his only All-Pro nod with 880 yards. Steve Largent, who had 1,100 yards that same year, didn't make the team. That's East Coast bias in a nutshell. Swann got that gold jacket for what he did in the Super Bowl, going over 100 yards twice in the big game and scoring 3 touchdowns. But if that's the metric, you might as well start taking measurements for Julian Edelman, too. This Oilers running back may have lasted longer than his tearaway jersey, but for one of the great power backs of all time, longevity was probably never in the cards. The Tyler Rose was the first overall pick in the 1978 draft and won MVP just a year later, bulldozing everyone in his path and treating his body like a battering ram in the process. There were few better at his peak, but with that running style came a lot of tread on the tires. He runs with a lot of reckless abandon, Giants All-Pro running back Ron Johnson said. You can run like that in college, but you can't do that for 10 years and hope to survive. Johnson was right, unfortunately, and Campbell's career was effectively over by 1984, never hitting 10,000 career rushing yards. But his first 4 years were exceptional, 6,500 yards and 55 touchdowns. A candle in the wind probably isn't the most apt metaphor. Let's go with the Mack truck driving down the wrong side of the highway. We usually don't notice centers, but we should when they make 5 straight All-Pro teams and earn Man of the Year in the middle of that streak. That's what Dwight Stephenson did with Dan Marino's hands riding up his ass. Unfortunately, in the last of those 5 All-Pro seasons, Stephenson suffered a knee injury against the Jets that would cap his career at just 8 seasons, only 6 of those which were spent as the full-time starter for the Dolphins. Regardless of how you view Pro Football Focus and whether or not it's just astrology for football fans, they believe Stephenson is the best football player of all time, regardless of position. Think about that when Mercury goes full retrograde. You would expect a guy with the last name Covert to fly under the radar, but with just 8 years at the tackle position, which generally breeds longevity, he was dominant enough to earn a spot in Canton after just 111 games. Covert was Jim McMahon's blindside protector on the offense that was overshadowed by the '85 Bears defense. It's hard to quantify an offensive lineman's greatness, but perhaps this will do it. Covert faced Lawrence Taylor 3 times when the Bears and Giants squared off in the '80s, and Taylor never once recorded a sack. There was no one else that could stop LT at the time, not even drugs. A back injury ended Covert's dominant career prematurely, but his contributions to Chicago's 1 Super Bowl victory were more than enough to get him a spot next to Walter Payton and Mike Singletary in Canton. Kenny Easley isn't a household name, but for 7 years in the '80s, he was Ed Reed before Ed Reed. Easley was Seattle's first-round pick in 1981, and up until the discovery of a kidney disease, possibly caused by the overuse of Advil pushed by the Seahawks, the UCLA product racked up 24 picks in his first 4 seasons, 3 All-Pros, and 1984 Defensive Player of the Year when he picked off 10 passes. Easley's career was complicated. It involved his prominent role in the 1987 players' strike, injuries, and the aforementioned kidney disease, which was discovered in a physical that voided a trade that sent him to the Cardinals in 1988. Easley called it a career after that, and after reconciling with the Seahawks, was finally elected to the Hall of Fame in 2017, the same year as the number 2 player on our list. TD's prime in the NFL only lasted 4 years, from 1995 to 1998, but it was one of the greatest stretches a running back has ever had. Before his knee injury in 1999, Davis had accomplished these feats. Are 4 seasons enough to earn a gold jacket? The committee thought so in 2017 when they elected Davis in his 11th year of eligibility. He didn't have the longevity, that's for sure, but would you rather have 4 years of greatness or 16 years of Frank Gore, who can compile volume stats like the rest of them but never touched Davis at full strength? Had Davis not hurt his knee trying to make a tackle following an interception, he may have been considered up there with Walter Payton or Barry Sanders. Imagine if some ketchup-related tragedy forced Patrick Mahomes to retire after the 2020 season after a 2nd Super Bowl win. That was Terrell Davis. And now, the Hall of Famer with the fewest amount of games played. The Kansas Comet left us just recently, but in 68 short games in the NFL, he made his mark as the most elusive running back the NFL had ever seen. And you need to see this to believe it. In his 1965 rookie season alone, number 4 overall pick Sayers scored 20 touchdowns rushing and receiving, and took a kick and a punt back to the house as well. Sayers put together 5 All-Pro seasons and somehow only 4 Pro Bowls in his first 5 seasons. At the beginning of 1970, Sayers suffered his 2nd knee injury in 2 years. This one bad enough to derail a legendary start and end to a career. It became apparent when he was unable to chase down defensive lineman Alan Page on a fumble return that Sayers had lost so much speed that he was no longer an effective running back. Like Terrell Davis, it should make fans grateful for modern surgery, training, and rehab that enables players to come back from injuries that in 1970 were catastrophic. But during that year, at the lowest point in his career, Sayers wrote his autobiography, I Am Third, which was adapted into Brian's song starring Billy D. Williams and James Caan as his late teammate Brian Piccolo. Sayers' career was cut short, but the Comet burned with more intensity than plenty of other Hall of Famers never reached. So maybe those small dick havers were onto something. It really isn't about length, it's about the girth of these players' careers. Congrats to them all, they certainly earned it.
I love my family and I love my friends who stuck with me. And just like these guys, I love football. I love this game.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do not forget to check out the sponsor, Roman, and like, comment, or subscribe for more interesting videos on sports. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to my next video.